a small village nestled between the great hills and flowing rivers, there was a school known as Nyarindo Academy. It was a place where the young girls were taught to be good, humble, and obedient. Every parent hoped their child would grow, up to be as bright as the rising sun. Among the students, there was one girl who stood out, a young lady named Akila. Her uniform was always spotless, her braids neatly tied, and her smile was as warm and inviting as the sun at midday. Teachers adored her and the other girls admired her deeply. By day, Akila seemed like the ideal role model. Every parent would wish for their child to be like her. But when night fell, a transformation occurred. No one knew what happened behind the closed doors of the girls' dormitory. As the other girls slept soundly, Akila's true life began to unfold. When the moon rose high and the stars blinked brightly in the sky, Akila would stir from her bed, careful not to disturb her sleeping friends. She moved quietly, like the wind through the grass. Beneath her mattress, she hid a small cloth bag. Inside were clothes unlike any of the school uniforms. They were bright, shining fabrics that shimmered like the evening stars. Akila slipped out of the hostel and walked to the farthest corner of the school grounds, where a rusty old fence stood, guard, silent and still. With one smooth movement, she scaled the fence, her bag slung over her shoulder. On the other side, she changed into the sparkling clothes, transforming from a simple schoolgirl into a woman of the city. Every night, she joined the gatherings at the heart of the village. The sound of music, wild and free, filled the air. Lights of every color danced around her as she moved to the rhythm, laughing, spinning, and living a life full of excitement. By the time the rooster crowed, Akila would return to the hostel. She climbed the fence once more, changed back into her uniform, and slipped quietly into bed before anyone could suspect a thing. To her fellow students and the teachers, she was the perfect student, a role model, a leader. If only they knew, Akila would think to herself, folding her fancy dress and hiding it back under her mattress. Her double life continued, flowing, like a hidden river, unnoticed by anyone. One evening, while at one of the lively gatherings, Akila met a woman named Zawadi. Zawadi had sharp eyes that gleamed with secret knowledge, and a smile that seemed to hold many unspoken words. As they talked, Zawadi leaned closer to Akila and whispered in her ear, "You could make so much more money, you know. All you need to do is bring a few more girls. The men will pay for them and everyone will be happy." Akila's ears perked up like a lioness catching a scent in the air. The idea sounded sweet and tempting, like honey dripping from a comb. She thought for a moment, her mind racing, before a thought hit her. "I know just the person," she muttered, under her breath. The next day, she spotted a quiet girl named Siti. Siti was a junior student, always with a look of sadness in her eyes. Her parents never visited on special days, and the bags of food others received never reached her. Her meals at the academy were always small, and sometimes Siti went to bed with an empty stomach. Akila knew of Siti's struggles and saw an opportunity to use it for her own gain. Later that afternoon, Akila approached Siti by the dormitory. Her voice was as soft as the wind rustling through the trees. "Siti, I've noticed how you've been struggling," Akila said with a warm smile. "But what if I told you there's a way to make money? You could eat better, wear better clothes. All you have to do is follow me tonight." Siti's eyes brightened. She had always dreamed of better food and a more comfortable life. "What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Akila smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Just follow me. I'll take care of everything. You'll have enough money to buy anything you want." Siti's heart raced in her chest like a drum beat. She hesitated, unsure, but the thought of having enough food to fill her belly finally convinced her. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll go." That night, as the world slept, Akila quietly woke Siti and handed her a small bag. They crept out, just like Akila had done many times before, and scaled the fence together. Once outside, Akila gave Siti a dress that shimmered in the moonlight like dew on grass. Siti hesitated but trusted Akila. When they reached the gathering, Sidi's eyes widened. The room was alive with color and sound, with people laughing, talking, and dancing. A man approached her, smiling kindly. Akila whispered, "Go with him. You'll be fine." Sidi, nervous but trusting, followed the man. Hours passed, and when the man returned her, she had money in her hand. Akila smiled as they walked back to the hostel, sneaking in just before the sun rose. The next morning, Sidi was exhausted. Her eyes were heavy like stones, but her pocket was full. When Akila shared the money with her, Sidi felt a mix of joy and guilt. She had done something she never thought she would do, but the promise of better food made the decision easier. "It's not so bad," she thought to herself. From that day, Sidi became part of Akila's hidden world, and the game had only just begun. As the days went by, Sidi couldn't hide the joy in her heart. The money she had earned from sneaking out with Akila felt like magic in her hands. She bought extra food, tasty snacks, and even a few nice things just for herself. It was as though a new world had opened up to her, and soon her excitement was impossible to ignore. One afternoon, while they sat quietly behind the hostel, Sidi whispered to her friend Tashi about her newfound secret. "You can make so much money, you know," she said, her voice low but full of mischief. "All you need to do is come with me and Akila." The word spread quickly like a fire catching the dry grass. One by one, other girls began to approach Akila, asking if they too could join her. Akila smiled faintly, knowing her little group was growing. She carefully selected only the boldest and most beautiful girls. By the end of the week, her circle had grown to 6 eager girls, each one more than willing to sneak out at night and return before dawn with pockets full of money. Akila knew she had to keep things in order. "We can't get caught," she said, her voice firm as she gathered the group. "Everyone must follow my rules. If one of us messes up, we all get in trouble." The first rule was simple: smuggle phones into the hostel. The girls hid them in lockers, under their mattresses, and even inside their shoes. These phones allowed them to talk to the men they met at the parties, arranging secret meetups. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the girls, Temi, came to Akila with a look of fear in her eyes. "I think I'm pregnant," Temi whispered, her voice trembling with panic. Akila, calm as ever, simply shrugged. "Don't worry," she said, her tone smooth and unbothered. "I know a chemist who can fix this." That night, instead of going to a party, Akila snuck out to meet the chemist who was part of their secret operation. He handed her a small packet of pills and told her, "Tell her to rest for a few days and make sure no one finds out." The next morning, Akila returned to the hostel and handed the pills to Temi, who pretended to be sick. By the third day, Temi was back on her feet as if nothing had happened. This became their routine. Whenever a girl got pregnant, Akila would visit the chemist, get the pills, and keep everything quiet. The girls continued to sneak out, dancing until the night turned into day, always returning to the hostel with money in their pockets. Akila controlled everything, like a captain steering a ship through stormy seas. The girls trusted her completely, unaware that the path they were on was dangerous, like walking down a road covered with soft petals, hiding sharp thorns beneath. A while, the secret group thrived, but trouble was lurking just around the corner. In the school, there was a beautiful, innocent girl named Amina. Amina was the kind of student everyone admired. She was smart, hardworking, and had earned a scholarship to Nyarindo Academy through her dedication. Her parents, who came from a modest background, had given her one important piece of advice before she left for school. Stay focused, avoid trouble, and make us proud. For some time, Amina did just that. She stayed out of trouble, always sat at the front of the class and kept to herself. But everything changed the day she met Tashi and Zuri, two of Akila's closest friends and partners in her secret world. Tashi and Zuri were nothing like Amina. Their parents were wealthy and they lived like queens at the hostel. They wore expensive clothes, bought snacks whenever they wanted, and always had the latest phones. Amina couldn't help but feel drawn to their lives, though she knew their behavior wasn't the best. One afternoon, Zuri approached Amina with her usual confident smile. "Amina, why do you always sit with these quiet girls? Come join us," she said. At first, Amina hesitated. She had heard the rumors about Zuri and Tashi, and her friends had warned her to stay away. But Zuri's smooth words and warm smile made Amina feel special. Before long, Amina found herself spending more and more time with them. One evening, Zuri leaned in and said, "We're sneaking out tonight. There's a party at this cool place, and you're coming with us." Amina's eyes widened. "No, I can't do that. What if we get caught?" Zuri rolled her eyes. "Caught by who? Everyone does it, Amina. Don't be such a prude. Come on, don't you want to have some fun?" After a lot of pressure, Amina finally gave in. That night, when the hostel was quiet, she followed Akila, Zuri, and Tashi as they snuck out. They handed her a short, flashy dress and a phone. Amina looked at the dress, unsure. "This is too much," she said. "It's too short." Zuri laughed. "Do you want to look like a grandmother? Wear it or stay behind." Reluctantly, Amina put on the dress, and the group climbed the fence together. The party was loud, packed with people, and filled with energy. Amina felt completely out of place, but Zuri and Tashi moved around confidently as if they owned the place. Amina, on the other hand, sat nervously at the side, unsure of what to do next. One evening, as the music boomed and the lights flickered, like stars, a tall man approached Ugo. He moved with confidence, his voice smooth and calm. "Hi, beautiful," he said, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "What's your name?" Ugo looked away shyly. "I don't talk to strangers," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. The man smiled kindly. "I'm Sam. I'd like to be your friend," he said. Ugo wasn't sure how to respond, so she stayed silent. Before he left, Sam slipped her a piece of paper with his phone number written on it. "Call me," he said with a wink. The next morning, back in the hostel, Simi and Annie teased Ugo about Sam. "Do you even know who he is?" Simi asked, her voice full of excitement. "He's rich, he can buy you anything you want." Ugo shook her head. "I don't need anything from him," she said firmly. But Simi and Annie didn't stop. They painted a picture of a life where Ugo wouldn't have to struggle anymore. A life full of luxury. Slowly, their words began to sink in. One day, Ugo picked up her phone and dialed Sam's number. From that moment on, she began sneaking out regularly with Simi and Annie. She met Sam often, and he showered her with gifts and compliments. But with each passing night, her studies began to slip. The once brilliant Ugo, who had worked so hard to earn her place at Goodness College, now struggled to stay awake in class. Her books gathered dust, and she didn't even realize she was walking down a dangerous path. One bright afternoon, as Ugo sat in the hostel trying to study, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Sam. "It's my birthday this weekend. I want you and your friends to come. I'll send a car to pick you up." Simi squealed with excitement when Ugo told her. "Do you know what that means? His house is probably a palace," she exclaimed. Annie chimed in. "We have to look our best. This is our chance to meet other rich men." Ugo felt uneasy but didn't want to disappoint her friends. That weekend, as usual, they sneaked out. A sleek, shiny car was waiting outside the school fence. The driver smiled and opened the door, and they were whisked away like royalty to Sam's house. When they arrived, Ugo's jaw dropped. The mansion was enormous, with sparkling lights and music so loud it seemed to shake the earth. The party was in full swing, with people laughing, drinking, and dancing. Sam greeted them warmly, his eyes lingering on Ugo. "You look beautiful," he said, and Ugo felt a strange flutter in her chest but quickly pushed it away. As the party continued, Sam pulled Ugo aside and handed her a stunning gown. It glittered like 1,000 stars. "I bought this just for you," he said. Ugo smiled, shyly. "Thank you," she whispered. But then Sam's tone shifted. "You know, I've been very kind to you, Ugo," he said softly. "I think it's time you show me how much you appreciate me. Come with me to my room." Ugo froze. Her mind raced. and her heart pounded. "I can't do that," she said, stepping back. Sam frowned. "Why not? Don't you love me? I've given you so much." Ugo's voice trembled as she spoke. "I made a promise to myself. I won't give my body to any man until my wedding night." Sam's face darkened. "Promises don't mean anything. Here," he said coldly. "You're mine tonight." Before Ugo could react, Sam grabbed her wrist and dragged her upstairs to his room. She begged and pleaded, her voice breaking like a fragile pot. "Please don't do this," she cried. "My sister died trying to end a pregnancy. I can't go down that road." But Sam didn't listen. He locked the door and forced himself on her. Ugo's screams were drowned by the booming music outside. When it was over, she lay on the bed, broken and betrayed. Sam left her there and went back to the party, as if nothing had happened. Trembling, Ugo put on the beautiful gown Sam had given her. It was the only thing she had left to cover herself. When she came downstairs, Simi immediately noticed the gown. "Wow, Ugo, you look amazing," she said, oblivious to the pain in Ugo's eyes or the way her legs shook with every step. "Please take me back to the hostel," Ugo whispered, tears streaming down her face. Simi and Annie finally agreed, and they sneaked back into the hostel just before dawn. In the safety of her bed, Ugo wept silently, her tears soaking her pillow. Her life had changed forever, and the betrayal she felt weighed heavily on her heart like a stone. Weeks later, Ugo began to feel ill. She woke up nauseous, weak and dizzy. One of her close friends noticed her symptoms and quietly suggested, "You should take a test." Her heart pounded as she borrowed a pregnancy test kit from a senior girl. The result was clear, and it felt like the ground had opened beneath her feet. She was pregnant. Ugo sat on her bed, holding her head in her hands, her mind racing, told her story, her voice breaking with every word. "It was Sam," she whispered, looking down at the floor. "He said he cared about me, but now he's abandoned me." The principal's expression softened, but her voice remained firm. "Ugo, this is a serious matter. We need to get your parents involved." Ugo nodded, her heart heavy with fear. She had known this moment would come, but now that it was here, she felt a crushing sense of dread. How would her parents react? What would they say? By the time Ugo's parents arrived at the school, the storm had already begun. Her mother's face was pale, her hands trembling as she held Ugo in a tight embrace. Her father, usually a man of few words, stood silent, his eyes filled with disappointment. The silence in the room was suffocating, and Ugo couldn't bring herself to speak, her mind numb with guilt. "Ugo," her mother said, her voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you come to us? Why didn't you ask for help?" "I didn't know what to do," Ugo whispered, her voice barely audible. "I thought I could handle it on my own." Her father, who had remained silent until now, spoke up, his voice cold and harsh. "You have embarrassed this family. You've made a mess of everything. Do you even understand what this will mean for you? For us?" Ugo nodded, tears welling up in her eyes, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. The words of condemnation from her father cut deep, more painful than anything she had imagined. Her mother, seeing the pain in her daughter's eyes, took her hand. "Your father is angry, Ugo, but we'll get through this together," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We'll figure this out, but you have to take responsibility for your actions." Ugo looked up at her mother, grateful for her support but feeling a deep ache in her chest. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered, barely able to choke out the words. "I never meant to hurt anyone." Her mother squeezed her hand gently. "We know, Ugo. We know." The days that followed were a blur of meetings with the principal, the school nurse, and her parents. The situation was more serious than Ugo had anticipated. There were talks of counseling, the potential consequences of being a teenage mother, and discussions about what would happen next. Throughout it all, Ugo felt like she was drowning in a sea of expectations and responsibilities. She had made a decision to keep her child, but now the weight of that decision was more than she could bear. Each day felt like a battle, and she often found herself staring blankly at the walls, her thoughts consumed by the consequences of her choices. The whispers in the hostel grew louder. Simi and Annie avoided her, no longer offering the comfort they once had. They'd seen her as a friend, but now she was a cautionary tale, someone they didn't want to be associated with. Ugo tried not to let it bother her, but deep down, it hurt. She had once been part of their group, and now she felt like an outsider, alone in a world that no longer seemed to make sense. One evening, as Ugo sat in the hostel lounge, a familiar figure approached. It was Tommy, the girl who had been there for her when she first found out about her pregnancy. Tommy sat down beside her, offering a small, reassuring smile. "I'm here for you, Ugo," she said quietly, her voice full of understanding. "I know it's hard, but you don't have to face this alone." Ugo felt a weight lift off her shoulders just by hearing those words. For the first time in weeks, she felt like someone cared. "Thank you, Tammy," she whispered, tears threatening to spill from her eyes once more. "You're stronger than you think, Ugo," Tammy continued. "You'll get through this one day at a time." Ugo nodded, knowing that Tammy was right. The road ahead would be difficult, but at least she wasn't facing it alone. With the support of people like Tammy and the love of her parents, Ugo felt a glimmer of hope. She had made a choice, and now she had to stand by it no matter how difficult the journey would be. The whispers of the world would always be there, but Ugo had found her strength in the darkest of times. And with that, she made a silent promise to herself. She would not let this define her. Top of form, bottom of form, Ugo's life had taken a path that no one could have predicted. From the early days of youthful rebellion to the painful reality of facing the consequences of her actions, her story became one of transformation. Though the journey was filled with heartache, betrayal, and sorrow, Ugo's courage in the face of adversity became the cornerstone of her strength. Her experience taught her not only the weight of her choices, but also the importance of understanding the consequences of those choices on her future and the lives of others around her. As the whispers of judgment grew louder, Ugo found solace in the love she had for her child. She realized that while her dreams had shifted, they hadn't been completely lost. They had simply been redefined. Anita, once admired and envied, learned the harsh lesson that power and popularity can fade in an instant when one makes decisions, without considering the consequences. She, too, was forced to face the repercussions of her actions and the lives she had affected. In the end, Ugo's story became more than just a cautionary tale. It became a testament to resilience. She faced every challenge with unwavering determination, turning the pain of her past into the strength to raise her child and build a future that, while different from the one she had envisioned, was meaningful in its own right. Ugo would always remember the lessons learned along the way, the importance of being careful with who you trust, the need to understand the power of your own choices, and the strength found in rising after a fall. Her journey, filled with both sorrow and hope, was one of redemption, a journey that inspired those who heard it to reflect, learn, and most importantly, to never give up.